Welcome to Pithy Musings, episode 6. Oh no, I just did the thumbs up, but that was 6. Super excited to be here.
Cheers.
A big cheers with the famous Pithy Musings mugs. Got to take a sip for good measure. Water and lemon never tasted so good.
Is that what you got in there?
Yeah.
Huh.
I'm trying to hydrate more. Things got really hot this week.
Right.
And there was a cost to how I felt
Yes.
by not drinking enough water. We are so glad that everybody is here. We're so grateful to those of you who keep tuning in, those of you who are subscribing. Pithy Musings is all about putting the funk back into being human.
Mm-hmm.
We like to talk about all things human. We like to put real stuff on the table. It's pithy, vulnerable, courageous talk. We share some of our own experiences and stories, learnings, concepts, and we really try to challenge the conventional and get raw and real. Last time we talked about we are all creative, curious beings.
I think it was my favorite. I think it was my favorite. Yeah.
How come? Tell me.
I like the show and tell. I like to see your picture. And I think it just elicited a lot of conversation, both prior to the episode and after the episode. People in my circle were still talking about it. How about for you?
Yeah, same. And that also touches on, I want to thank some really amazing clients out there, members of my community near and far who have shared.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What do you mean by community?
Oh, well, we talk about Pithy Musings being relevant to life and work. And yet I catch myself on that because part of life for many of us is work. So when I refer to community, I'm meaning like human life outside of work.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. You're welcome, Caroline. So Pithy Musings, I'm Eva Van Krugel with Fervor Leadership Coaching and Consulting. I'm with my amazing colleague.
Right back at you, sister. I'm Carolyn Berglund, principal of Talk Talk and the One Stop Special Needs Shop. On the Talk Talk side, we specialize in leadership, doing a ton, I keep on saying that, but a ton in team development. We also do some executive coaching and teach others how to public speak.
Yeah. And Carolyn and I, what's so fascinating for those of you who may not have been listening to every single episode or how we first met, what's really interesting is there is a lot of crossover, not 100%, but like 75% crossover between what Carolyn and I each do in our businesses. And yet we are not in competition with one another.
Nope.
We are like in support of one another.
And collaborators.
Totally.
Both at Pithy Musings and other projects. So I think it's a lovely message, right? That two strong females having their own independent practices coming together for no other purpose than to collaborate and develop friendship.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And you know what? I talk to, some of my client base, it consists of entrepreneurs, business owners, and they will some that are like kicking it off for the first time. Something that we've noticed a lot of in the pandemic too, is a lot of people really connecting in their values and saying, hang on a second, I'm willing to give up this, this, and this, and go follow my truth, live into my purpose and values. And my point is that one of the biggest fears people have, aside from, will I make it and will I be okay, which is a whole other topic and episode maybe one day, do I have to do this alone? I'm afraid to do it alone.
Yeah.
And I have never felt, I mean, this partnership here, among a few other partnerships that I have that I deeply value, I think you know who you are, and I'm sure for you too.
Yeah.
I've never felt alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ever. It just starts with asking to connect. And some of us just connect, and what a gift.
Well, and we've talked about it before we get into episode 6, we will tell you what we're going to talk about. But we had an instant connection. And again, for those that think that LinkedIn doesn't work, that's how we met. And we've actually never met face to face, which is so hilarious.
I know.
I think I was telling you, because you have family in Calgary, that when you get to Calgary, I'm giving you a big hug.
Oh.
I'm like, are you tall? Are you short? I have no idea.
I know. I'm going to hug you till your face turns purple.
That's right.
I think I might, I'm a pretty sensitive, loving person. I think seeing you in person might result in tears. I think I'd be so happy to see you.
No question. Can't wait.
That stuff's got to get filmed.
Totally. Before we're going to hug each other to death, but before we get into the episode, there's one other comment I wanted to make to our viewers and watchers. Yeah. And that is, Eva and I were reviewing how many views of our 5 episodes up until this point we've had, and it's been thousands. So we want to extend our genuine and heartfelt appreciation for everybody who's tuned in, and those that have tuned in and watched the full episode, because some of them are quite long. I think 1 hour and 7 minutes was one of them. I can't remember which one, but they all hover around that hour mark. So for those that stick in or dive back in after pauses, we just want to say thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was super appreciative. And if you're not subscribing, because sometimes you just like we were talking about beforehand, people will say, I have a client who loves Pithy Musings, bless her soul, and she shares it with her team. And she's like, oh, listen to this one. There's things that we can learn. And I think she also appreciates the vulnerability of our conversations and modeling that to create trust in her team. So there's a few reasons why she's tuning in. And my comment back, as always, just as yours, is, are you subscribing? So it's made easy and so that you can tune in when you're ready to. So we're really wanting more subscribers on there, and we really need your help. Those of you who are watching and listening, we would love your help. Please subscribe on the YouTube channel. It's just look up Pithy Musings YouTube, and there it is. Subscribe, bada bing, bada boom.
And also provide comments. So Eva and I had committed to doing these first 6 episodes, just the 2 of us. We always had the idea of branching out and inviting speakers into our Pithy Musings. So if you're interested on being and joining us with Pithy Musings, let us know. Let us know what you want us to talk about, and we'll invite you in.
So share in comments anywhere on any episode. We're monitoring them. We'd love your feedback. We'd love your questions. Agree with a certain thing, disagree with a certain thing. We just simply say, let's make it psychologically safe. But we really want to hear what people think. And if you have an idea that you want us to cover off, or you'd like to be a guest, bring it on. Yep. Talk to us in comments, or you can write us and we'll share our contact details at the end.
So number 6.
Why are we so afraid of conflict?
Whoa, we're going to go there.
We're going there. And part of the topics that we choose in each of our Pithy Musings are the things, sometimes we talk about the things that people don't really want to talk about, or we think people don't talk about enough, and in learning to be better humans in the world and be better to each other. And so that was one of the reasons why we felt this topic was really important. And conflict doesn't have to be that big. Whoa, it can just be hard conversations, but we're so scared. Go ahead.
Well, let's define it, right? So what is conflict defined? It's any situation in which people have incompatible goals, interests, principles, or feelings.
Yeah.
Been there. Have you?
Oh, sure. I mean, at this point in life, I'm 97 years old. And so
with your soundmates.
I have really good eye cream, but for sure, lots of lived experiences at work, family, social life, community. Yeah. You?
Oh, yeah. I came across a really interesting article the other day. They said, and they were asking in the article, do you think your workplace would be more effective if everyone were more frank with their opinions?
Mm-hmm.
And the response was 91%. So what that tells me is two things: that people aren't being frank at work. And the second is, well, why?
Yeah, why do you think?
I think it's power, it's hierarchy, it's unpsychologically safe teams. I'll give you an example. I was on a team for a long time. I think, and that leader really wanted to be the smartest person in the room.
Oh yeah.
And certainly didn't nurture questions, and certainly didn't nurture conflict. But without trust, if you think about Lencioni's model, right, with there's trust and then conflict, then commitment, accountability, and then results. Without trust, you can't actually go into conflict. Do you buy that?
Yeah, I absolutely do. It takes me to, I know how you and I are such learning nerds. And it takes me to some of the Dare to Lead work with Brene Brown that gets into the trust model, and part of creating environments where we can be more, so it's more of a leadership context in an organization, but to be more daring is to live into our values, to live into being courageous, to use our courage skills and build foundations of trust. Those are the core foundations of the entire Dare to Lead platform. And without trust, we're broken.
Well, and in that team that I was just telling you about, there was what we call artificial harmony. So let me define that for you. It refers to a team of people who don't have very much healthy conflict, which Lencioni defines as passionate, unfiltered debate around issues of importance to the team. So that artificial harmony is everything's fine. Everything's fine. Don't challenge me. I don't want to be challenged. We're doing it all, great. Have you ever been on a team like that?
Yes, and I've had a history of being fairly vocal.
Yeah.
And frank. However, I have definitely been, in environments where people start to withdraw and they've lost the good fight. And I don't mean aggressive fight, assertive fight, asserting our needs and wants, using our voices for constructive good to make things better, where people have literally just acquiesced, given up, often because they feel their voices don't matter. They're not being heard, they're not being understood, and not being involved in, their thoughts and feelings aren't being brought into decision making. So they're feeling disempowered, and then they armor up, or they feel unsafe.
Yeah. Let's go back to two words that you just used, because I'd like them to be anchored for our viewers and watchers. And that's the difference between assertive and aggressive.
Yeah.
Massive difference. Aggressive is shaming, belittling, all of that. Assertive is not a bad thing.
Yeah. Asserting our needs and wants.
Asserting our needs and wants.
Reference it.
This is the answer, right? Like someone at some point has to have an answer. So there's a massive difference between aggression and assertion.
Yeah. And I also, there's something you said earlier around why do we fundamentally fear conflict? And, I wish I could point to one or two specific sources. In my heart of all hearts over the years, I think it comes down to wanting to belong and fear of not belonging, or feeling unsafe, or feeling like we will land completely isolated. Yeah. Things like that come to mind. Anything else for you?
Yeah, where I'm going in my head is like, maybe it's important for us to answer the question of why is unhealthy conflict important? Like, why is it so important?
Well, and what's the difference between healthy and unhealthy? What are the markers?
Yeah, I think, the healthy markers are, that trust, that respect, that openness, that listening, that showing flexibility. And some of the unhealthy ones would be, from your perspective?
Well, some of what you've shared, and I have so many models floating in my head, but
I know.
Right? Because we both love our concepts and our models, and I'm like, oh, I really want to go there. But I think unhealthy.
Which book am I going to show?
I mean, there's stuff scattered all over I got my Rumble tools, my Rumble starters from Dare to Lead. I've got my conflict dynamics guide.
Yeah.
But unhealthy, shaming, blaming.
Can I tell you my least favorite one?
Yeah.
That it agitates me so much. And that is the passive aggression. It's indirectly aggressive. Indirectly aggressive. I'm fine. Fine.
Yeah. I just literally big belly breath as you said that, because I'm challenged with that as well. And yeah, and that again, armoring up. So let me just read the markers of unhealthy conflict according to the conflict dynamic profile. Avoiding, demeaning others, displaying anger, hiding emotions, retaliating, self-criticizing, winning. So all these are self-explanatory. That's why I'm not going down those hills. Yielding, in other words, letting the other win, and making it personal versus about the challenge. Which of those really get your jaw tight?
I can't even, they all do.
Yeah.
They all do, because, it's so interesting because people just fear that reaction. And so they just don't go there. But I want to go back to Lencioni, because I absolutely think that you can have healthy conflict. So all of those things that we talked about on the positive side, respect, open, whatever, if that foundation is there. And we did an entire episode 2, I think it was, on psychological safety and why that's so important. So in the absence of trust, teams will not go into conflict. And I have to tell our viewers and watchers that conflict is really important in relationships, whether it be at work, in life, in community. It's really important, because that's where ideas are challenged. That's where new ideas spring up. If you have boring meetings, if you have meetings where people are hesitant to speak up, you likely have a challenge with nurturing healthy conflict on your teams. If nobody's saying anything, or better yet, I was on a team that did this before, Eva. So everybody be in the meeting, nobody's speaking up, but you'd hear or you'd see people pinging each other. Ooh. Or when pre-COVID, you go down the hall and I'd be in the same meeting with another person. They'd say, "Can you believe they said that?" Right? That whole gossip thing.
Ooh.
Right?
So
that's
damaging.
But have you been in an environment like that where
yes.
Right? Yeah. It's like, and I remember at one point calling out to people that were clearly, IMing, pinging, whatever, texting, because you could see it. Is there something that you want to share with the broader team? That didn't go over well.
Well, and that's also, that gets into having the courage and feeling like you have the skills to call the elephant in the room. So for example, like say maybe in a team coaching or facilitation assignment, it's different because we're trying to help surface the conversation that needs to happen.
Yes.
But we're not there to necessarily, fix or lead the team per se. So it's a safer, more objective place. But I think of leaders in organizations, and I've had several clients, and this is one of the reasons why I think we wanted to talk about this too, because we both keep seeing it pop up for people. And we saw the notion of fear of conflict really showing up during the pandemic, where dynamics shifted in a virtual environment. And exactly as you're saying, what little termites are walking around behind the screen that we see. And we're starting to see disengagement. Disengagement happens. What's behind disengagement? And what's the role of conflict in that? And are we tackling conflict in healthy ways? And does it need to even be conflict? Could it just be healthy conversations? So what's so wrong in my head? If everybody is writing like that, I'd want to say the same thing too. However, I'm an imperfect being, but you and I have studied what to do with the emergent conversation, with the uncertainty of where it might go. So I think that's part of where an opportunity is. And I've had, I can think of a few clients in particular who are like, I want to skill up in this area because I want to have the hard conversations and do it in a safe, productive, constructive way. And I want to model what's possible.
So I've just worked with a team in crisis conflict, whereby my role was to bring the team together and show them their own conflict styles. So we all have our natural flexes. We've talked about all of the different personality profiles. There are, different behaviors that show up for different archetypes. But one of the reasons why I was brought in, and I really thought about this, is that in COVID, to your point, we're not around the water cooler. We're not having lunch. We're not going out for cocktails. And those are important activities in a relationship. And so we're going in and out of these Zoom calls, and nobody's nurturing the relationship. What people don't know is that Eva and I, before we actually start filming, we just chat for an hour. And that's just to catch up and continue to develop the relationship and not make it just about Pithy Musings. But there was a CEO and a CIO on this team, and they went into conflict during one of our virtual group sessions. And I wrote down what I said. And I said this out loud in front of the group. Excuse me, CEO Jack and CIO Jill. I just want to remind you both that this argument you are having, though uncomfortable, is exactly what we've been talking about. This is good. Keep going.
Yeah.
So actually bringing up real time, not talking about afterwards, reinforcing this is healthy conflict. You're doing it right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think part of what a couple of thoughts are floating around, I think of where I came from, which was a marketing history. And in that business, there is a fundamental tension between strategic and creative product. And I've been fortunate to experience both ends of the spectrum, where we literally, I remember the strategy and creative hot shops that I was part of, where we knew that healthy tension would make the outcome better.
Yeah.
And so we could go there and we would still grab a beer after work, shoot the what, and there was a sort of intimacy in the culture and the dynamic.
Yep.
And I'm, and I think at the core of it was trust. We trusted that we had one another's backs and that we were fighting the good fight to do amazing work. We trusted each other's integrity and intentions. I think that was at the core of it. And in those environments, and they were not all that positive, but the ones that were positive had those ingredients. And it was, again, we've talked about this in previous episodes, it was psychologically safe. And if somebody stepped out of line, someone else would have your back and be like, ooh, that's not the tone we need to take here.
Yeah, totally. And let's be vulnerable. I love that example. Let's be vulnerable with our viewers. You and I have had healthy conflict fairly recently.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It made me so sad.
Yeah, but let's walk. We don't need to go through the details. I think we should talk about the behaviors or the emotion. Okay.
Yeah.
But as I reflect on that example, we went there.
Yeah.
And we sat in it. And I remember that day, we were in it for about 3 hours, and I'm sitting at the side of my desk canceling shit. I don't know if you know this, because it was the most important thing that we felt okay to exit out of the conversation feeling like nobody was hurt.
I really, when I say it made me sad, I just remember being in it and feeling the sadness.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I think what we're trying to tell our viewers, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. And feeling deep emotion. Like, it was like love at first sight. I really love this person. I care about this person. And deep down, do I fear conflict? Well, if I deeply care about you, I don't want to not be okay with you.
Yeah.
And this was the first time and it was simply a misunderstanding over, I was saying X, you were saying Y. We weren't understanding X and Y. We were trying to explain X and Y. And
we weren't being clear with each other.
We just weren't being clear. But we weren't understanding. And then it was the first time there was a little bit of heat, but we both cared so much, like porcelain teacups not breaking. And
we checked in with one another as that 3 hours was unfolding. Are you okay? Are you okay? And then we made sure to check in I think it was the next day or a day or two after, to make sure that we were still okay. And we were okay.
Yes. I have it, but here's the other thing too. It's made me know you more.
Yeah.
It's made me trust you more.
100%. I agree with that statement. I trust you way more now.
And I feel
not that I didn't trust you before. I trusted you before. Yeah.
But I think it takes people to a deeper level if they let it happen. But we sat in discomfort. I was like physiologically sweating.
Yes.
My TMI, well, welcome to Pithy Musings. My pits were soaked. And I remember going out at the end of the conversation and I was like, because my beloved spouse, Jack, was like, I heard a reverberation of, I think it was Caroline's voice. And have you been talking to her for 3 hours? And I'm like, yes, we just went there. And I poured myself a scotch. I don't even drink scotch. And he was like, are you okay? Are the two of you okay? And I was like, you know what? I just love her more.
It's funny because my partner also asked me, what was that all about? As I poured a glass of red, and I do drink red.
Was it out of the box?
It was out of the box. That started during COVID. I don't know why. We got to get back onto the bottles because you never know how much you're drinking, right?
That's true. I know when you're like squeezing the bladder,
right?
The bladder, and you've got the nozzle, and you're like,
just getting every last
drop. I never bought boxes, and then anyway,
never. But he said, "Are you okay?" And my response was, "We're better than before."
Yeah,
and I really believed that.
Yeah,
I felt like that. It's a level of intimacy when you are tangoing in conflict. It's a level of intimacy where you have to look at every part of the whole being. My mantra has always been be kind, and I didn't want to hurt you for sure. I don't want to hurt anybody. And so when you're looking at the whole human being in conflict, it is not easy. And we share that example very consciously because we teach this stuff. And we were struggling with both professionals teach team dynamics. We do this all day, every day, and we still struggled.
Yeah, and when you're in it, it's trying to self-manage and use all that emotional intelligence we think we've worked on. And I guess that even though we've skilled up and worked at all this stuff, and we think we're self-aware, and we're still human and works in progress, and still having to learn. And I think it's just being okay with entering the heat.
Yeah.
And not being attached to outcome. And I think that's one of the scariest things, which ties back to fear for lots of people, being okay with not knowing what the outcome will be. If there's trust, deep trust, I think about another personal example, my husband and I.
Yeah.
You and I were chatting about this earlier.
Yeah.
And, he and I, 95% of the time, total best friends, beautiful dynamic. And then 5% of the time, usually quarterly, we have a tough time.
Yeah.
And it's over, like, I really want coffee when we go camping. I don't like going camping. I don't want to go camping, but I'll go camping with you for 2 nights.
You just get me the coffee.
But you got to figure out the coffee.
Yeah.
How does that just, and it's just, and then we unpack it, we repair, we work through it. And we both really, really worked at healthy conflict in intimacy. I mean, we've been working at this for almost 14 years.
Yeah.
And we literally have a practice. I don't know if I've ever shared this with you. We actually have a practice where when we have a tough time, we call it homework or a family meeting, and we'll call a family meeting. We'll enter the rest of the week with grace, and we'll say, listen, it's a Tuesday. Let's love one another, treat each other with grace. And on Saturday, let's have homework. And you know what we do in homework? We sit down and we enter the heat.
Yeah.
And we talk it through, and we each take a turn. And he always makes me go first, and he's convinced that it has to be Eva first, or else it just doesn't work out, whatever. So I let rip on my thoughts, my feelings, what I need. He then has to paraphrase. Here's what I heard.
Mirroring.
And here's how that makes me feel. Here's what I'd like to do next time. Is there anything else you'd add to that? And then we switch.
I love that. In my personal relationship, I have learned something new, and that's the art of apologizing.
Oh, yeah.
It is deeply important to my partner. And so I really, as I reflect over my life, I don't know if I was a real apologizer. Be like, okay, it's done now, we're over. Say that art, that actual act of saying, I'm sorry, is big. And when you receive that, when he says that to me, it's like, okay, now we're done. We're done.
Yes. That reminds me of a podcast that Jack and I listened to on the notion of apology. And it's a 2-part series. If anybody's interested, it's on Unlocking Us, Brene Brown's podcast. And she interviews Harriet Lerner, who covers off apology, the power of apology. And the number of people that I have talked to who, and it's very common, who, I've been married to this person for over 20 years. Oh no, he's never apologized.
Right.
And I'm like, how do you self-manage that? So, and the power of apology is a big one. And the power, one of the things I remember, it's been a while since I listened to it, was when we say sorry, to say, the other person needs to say, thank you. I hear that. And I appreciate that. Thank you for the apology. To receive the apology, both big moves. But here's a question for you.
That's good.
Yeah.
I don't think I do that. Yeah,
no, I've been working on it.
Yeah.
And if I don't, we'll go off, be in the car, whatever. Jack will look over at me and he'll be like, you haven't received my apology. And I'll be like,
you guys are too cute.
We're both deep feeling, people.
Yeah.
And I think you've just touched on, I don't know if I apologized. I'm curious about what you learned about conflict, because I think a lot of our fear of conflict is connected to where we come from and our experiences with conflict. And so I'm curious about, what you learned about conflict in your years or your upbringing.
Well, I think about work, and then I think about life. At work, I think, in the big corporate environments, I think I just avoided it because it wasn't nurtured. Like, I do believe, just like trust starts with the leader in the room, building that and fostering a psychologically safe environment. I think all eyes are on the leader. Are you going to mine for conflict? So what that means is I'm sensing something, you're not buying what I'm throwing down. Does anybody want to walk me through that? Like you actually are mining for that conflict. Most of the leaders that I have worked with didn't do that. So didn't nurture healthy conflicts. I can't think about a performance review that I had that wasn't going very well.
Ooh.
And yeah, there complete disagreement in terms of what I thought I had accomplished and what I was getting measured against.
Ooh.
And I felt, why am I being told this now? At the end of the year, right?
Oh, you had one of those.
Had one of those.
That's
And
a humdinger. Waiting it out.
that's performance management 101, is that you should be having continuous quality conversations, feedback throughout the year, so that by the time you get that piece of paper, it should be a 5-minute chat and a signature.
Yeah,
that's not what happened here.
Harboring is toxic in the relationship, in the dynamic.
Yeah.
The receiver, like in life too.
So I felt very much like blindsided. And I, probably the first time in my career, I bawled like
oh,
because I had worked the hours and hard, and I knew that there was a miscommunication of some sort here. Like, how is this? We never really did resolve it. We came back to talk about it again, but the number was the number. The result was the result, not to be really discussed again. And I do believe that harbored that particular relationship.
Well, I'm curious then, because of that experience, what did you learn from that?
Yeah.
That you'd like leaders to consider in organizations, and what can a receiver learn from that on what to do?
Yeah, so if you're a leader and you have the task of doing performance reviews, let me be very clear.
I love it when you frame things like
continuous quality feedback throughout the year.
Yeah.
And if you think that your direct report is struggling with whatever metric that might look like, then be proactive in having those conversations and provide help. How I would have done it differently would have been, I would like to take a pause. I think it's perfectly okay, even though there's a hierarchy position here, for you as an individual in a situation as such, whether it be performance review or something that's just really uncomfortable for you, to say, I need to take a break. Yeah. And I just need a minute to think before we can carry this conversation over.
That in my view is a very healthy thing to do, taking a time out or to just regain our objectivity.
I would have done
whatever it is. That timeout could be minutes, it could be hours, it could be 24 hours.
I likely would have needed a day.
For sure.
To really digest. So that's an example of kind of, healthy, well, what wasn't healthy conflict, that was conflict. How about for you?
Yeah, well, I agree. Feedback in the moment helps mitigate it. I think in the influences of conflict that, let's just say, maybe I grew up around. Yeah. Have influenced how I might respond in a hard conversation. And I grew up around, like, let's say it like it is. Let's hash it out. Let's get passionate. Let's get heated. Let's let the emotions rise. Yep. And then repair, be accountable. But it wasn't, it wasn't name calling or screw you. But it was passionate. I want my voice to be heard. Each person wanted to, but it was like big. Yeah. And intense. So it would be this volcano of really want to be seen, heard, and understood. Yep. And then And I would say I probably grew up around, some tempers as well.
Sure. Yeah.
You little pampers.
Yeah.
Little house there.
Yeah.
And I was mostly raised by a single mom who was exhausted, was also unwell for many years. So, there were dynamics in that too.
Yeah.
And also very close. A few of us are very close. So what it's taught me, and I've really had to work at it. Like I've really had to work at that. Not everybody repairs the next day, full apology, full ownership, full accountability, big I love yous, big hugs, we're okay. And it reminds me like my brother, 5 years older, didn't even know it, was just maybe a bit of a brute in a given moment and really hurt my feelings. I remember this one time, I don't even remember what it was about, doesn't matter, really hurt my feelings. But the very next day, I remember seeing this little folded piece of paper slid under my door, and it was on a Garfield pad with his almost geometric handwriting.
What was Garfield's dog's name? Or wasn't there a dog with Garfield? Opus? Opal? Oh, whatever.
Maybe. Oh, no.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure I've saved the note because I want to have it forever. But my brother was basically saying, I am so sorry that I hurt your feelings. I love you so much. You're my sister forever. Your brother, Jason.
Yeah.
So sweet. So it was like the next day repair.
Yeah.
But then I entered into life and career thinking it was okay to just be like, okay, we got to talk about this. I got an issue with what's going on here.
Really? So like at work or?
Sure. I'd be like,
and so how was that received?
Well, it got me into some hot water, right? Like maybe I was, and then working in environments where there was some hot-headedness, creative environments, lots of egos. And, it wasn't received, I can think of a couple, one environment in particular. Of course, it wasn't received well.
Yeah.
So then I remember going through a phase of like pulling back and withdrawing, which is also not healthy.
Yeah.
But anyway, fast forward, worked at it. So have the capacity now to be, frank, but, it's reminding me of one of the resources I use, Harrison reports. But anyway, the capacity to balance being more frank with also being diplomatic.
Yeah. I'm going to pull out a book.
I hope so.
Now this, I don't know if it's a book I recommend, but I bought it. It's called The 48 Laws of Power.
Okay.
I don't know if you know the history of this book. It's a book that is very popular with prison inmates. I'm not kidding. And celebrities. It's like a mega cult classic. 50 Cent. And this feller wrote a subsequent book to this.
Who's the author?
His name is Robert Greene. But I read things because not necessarily I agree with them. I'm curious, right? So let me read this to you. Win through your actions, never through argument. Any momentary triumph you think you have gained through argument is really a Pyrrhic victory. The resentment and ill will you stir up is stronger and lasts longer than any momentary change of opinion. It is much more powerful to get others to agree with you through your actions without saying a word. Demonstrate, do not explicate. What do you think?
As you share that, it's reminding me of, and I'm not sure exactly why, it's just reminding me of part of healthy conflict is not making it personal, not making it about the person and making it about the thing.
Can I just say another statement that it's not personal. It's not personal.
Really?
You know what? It reminds me of that movie, You've Got Mail. Do you remember that with Tom Hanks and
years.
Meg Ryan, where she has a little bookstore that it has been brought down by generations, and Tom Hanks has that like a big kind of chapters, like kind of, and he buys his
Oh yeah.
Meg's store so that they can expand. And he says in that movie, it's not personal. Well, holy crap. Yeah, it is personal. You've just taken away my business.
Yeah. What are, well, okay, let's go there on what are some examples, like just some tactical examples of what's personal versus looking at just putting the problem in front of us, between us.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, it's immediately making me think of the drama triangle.
Oh yeah. Cartman, right? Cartman?
Stephen Cartman's drama triangle. So if anybody's interested to learn about that, it's been around for a really long time, really popular in the therapy world, and it has growing popularity in workplace culture and leadership development. And it has 3 points to it. One is persecutor. Your
fault.
You did this, your fault.
Yeah.
You're to blame.
Know a few people like that.
Right?
Yeah.
Another is victim. Why does this always happen to me?
Yeah.
What's right? And the other one is rescuer. Instead of enabling healthy confidence in another person, we kind of want to take it all on, and it's almost dismissing their value and their worth. Yeah. So the way it's one of the models I use, like a pair of glasses, to notice if I'm on the edge of, or if I notice another in the edge of, or if I'm working with a team, whatever. If any of us are slipping into any of these dimensions, it's going to get personal in one way or another.
And another thing to add about that model is that you can switch positions in this toxic dance, right? Between persecutor, victim, rescuer. You don't necessarily always stay in one of those areas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the persecutor one, so that one comes to mind to the earlier question around it's your fault. Yeah.
Yeah.
Super, super personal. And it's the shaming, the demeaning, the criticism, and so on. And, antidotes, anybody who's interested, you can also look up the winner's triangle. It consists of assertive. We talked about assertive and what that means.
Yeah.
Nurturing with a healthy boundary.
Or caring. Yeah.
Caring without taking over because you don't have power. And being vulnerable, which we've talked a lot about before.
Yeah, that winner's triangle was developed as the flip of the Cartman drama triangle model to show what it could look like.
I think it's a really cool resource. Like if anyone wants to go there and look at it, I think that there's heaps of content on Cartman's Karpman.
Yeah.
Drama and winners triangles. There are videos on it, whether it's in relationship with family, intimate relationships, at work, maybe you volunteer, what is going on in the dynamic that you own and you're noticing in others, and what are the positive alternatives. It can be a really simple way. Well, it's not simple, but it's a way to sort of recognize ourselves and have compassion for others who may be slipping into it. And what's your role?
All of these models that we talk about in these 6 episodes are really self-reflection, right? So if I look at that drama triangle, I have a natural tendency, and that's to be the rescuer. So the question I have to ask is, how do I get myself out of this triangle if that's my natural tendency?
Who are you the rescuer the most with?
I think all of us that are in the work that we do, we help. We help. That's what we do.
Yeah.
So there's a fine line between the consulting and helping, and perhaps doing it too much, right? At home, in life, in community.
Yeah.
Start doing that now.
I know. I and I'm with you. It's reminding me. I had a fabulous conversation with a team coaching supervisor that I work with. A shout out to Michelle Bastock, who's just beautiful. And
hello, Michelle.
Hi, Michelle. And
thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, and I just think it's super healthy to, when you do the work that Carolyn and I do, we're still human. We still have, you're seeing, we still have our moments of recognizing ourselves in conflict or the drama triangle, whatever. So it's sometimes really helpful to partner with another to get that objectivity. But it's reminding me of what Michelle said to me, which was, we must remember in working with others, so this could apply to leaders too, you know, help enable surfacing what needs to be explored. And see what wants to happen. It doesn't mean you have to take full ownership of it.
Sure.
So if you were a team leader, how might you co-create where it goes? If you get stuck, you don't have to fix it. You don't have to rescue it. We think we do. You are still responsible for outcomes, but it's okay to go, I'm actually curious where you each want to take this.
Yep. Yeah, I love it.
So
I just wanted to go back to something that you said around we're all figuring this out, like you and me, we're still trying to figure it out. But even some of the greatest leaders that we saw, like a Branson, he's famous for being a yes guy.
Oh, say more.
To avoid confrontation. If you haven't read this, this is a great book. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
I think. So it's interesting because he became known within his organization early on as the yes guy. And if he was being candid, it was because he didn't want confrontation. So he kind of said yes to everything. He said it's interesting because Tony Blair, who is the PM at the time, had said the art of leadership is saying no. It is always very easy to say yes. And then Richard says, looks like I lost out on that leadership trait as well. So it made me think, because I don't know if you ever heard of the phrase from Jeff Bezos of Amazon, disagree and commit.
I know mixed views.
Yeah, so that disagree and commit was, so he had written to his shareholders, and this phrase will save a lot of time. If you have no conviction on a particular direction, even though there's no consensus, it's helpful to say, look, I know we disagree on this, but will you gamble with me on it? Disagree and commit.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, I love that. And what I like about that is that it invites me to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And part of what you're sharing too reminds me of the shields. I love that when we're recording and we don't edit this, for anybody who's watching, and even for the first time, we don't edit this. And it goes, your internet is unstable. Fabulous. Brilliant. Thank you. But it's reminding me of, and I want to just make sure and cite this properly. The shields, based on strategies of disconnection with Linda Hartling of the Stone Center of Wellesley. And we cover this off in some of the Dare to Lead work too. When we armor up, we are shielding ourselves. There's 3 shields. So you may have heard of these. Moving away, the shield of moving away, which is withdrawing. The shield of moving toward, the shield of appeasing and pleasing. The shield of moving against, aggressive, and trying to gain power over others. And when we think about each of those shields, is there one that you notice a lot out there in the world, or one that you relate to personally?
I haven't heard of these shields before, quite candidly. That's interesting. I think it depends, right? It depends who I'm with. So there's times I think moving away, aggressive, moving toward. I think we'd likely use all of those depending on the situation.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I can think of, it's really funny. Part of our morning cuppa before we press record, we talked about, relationships with mothers, mothers and daughters, or with parents, family dynamics.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, no, I've probably had moments when I was like 16 where I was moving against, and I may have, been a little bit challenging.
We should talk about what we were like as teenagers, man. We talked about
Probably,
ourselves as kids, but I was not easy.
I was not my best conflict self.
Right?
I wasn't, you know.
No.
I was spirited, and I had learned.
Yeah.
There were gifts in what I had learned, but there were also challenges in what I had learned that I then had to wrestle with later on in life.
Sure.
But it made me, you know, spirited and feisty, and it was like normal to go there. My mom was a social worker, so she's like, we got to do this. We're stepping into the ring and we're doing this.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. She was a
Okay.
social worker and worked with teens having a really hard time and ready to pop out of school and ready to hit the streets, some hitting the streets and helping to rehabilitate them. And yeah, so, you know,
I do think that it's interesting that we're talking about our childhoods, because I do think how you were raised can impact how you enter into and think about conflict and power and hierarchy. There might be some cultural differences there. There might be gender differences there. Whether you feel like you can.
Well, I'm glad you're bringing up the cultural piece. You know, wherever there are, whether we grew up in we've all grown up in different environments with different influences, different triggers. We all come from, as we've spoken to in a different episode, you know, we all have a story.
Yeah.
And that definitely, I believe, influences how we show up in conflict. And actually, that's reminding me too of trauma and the notion of trauma. We think there's two things: trauma, and I think that we have an epidemic of judgment and assumption of others that is creating divides, and we see that come up in the diversity, inclusion, and equity movement too.
Yep.
A lot of judgment and assumption, and lots of opportunity to work through some of that. I think judgment and assumption are sometimes at the center of disagreement and possibly conflict. You know, what story am I making up when I haven't even asked the question?
Yeah.
So yeah, and the trauma thing, the trauma connection, you know, I've been learning a little bit more about it since being introduced to Dr. Gabor Mate, who just released, if anyone is interested to explore more about what trauma really means, and how, you know, we show up as individuals in it, how we show up in community, and how we show up in the world in trauma. It's called the Wisdom of Trauma, and it was just released publicly over the past couple of weeks. And it demystifies the trauma connection to who we are and how it shapes our behaviors later on in life.
I just wanted to go back to something that you were talking about around diversity, inclusion, and equity. And I just want to say a statement, and this comes from my own personal experience with a son that has a severe disability. And I was thinking as you were speaking that I encourage those in the world, in the community, we're now overusing it, to find your voice, to speak up for others that are that either can't speak for themselves, and oftentimes that means entering into conflictual situations for someone else's benefit. So if you see an injustice going on in the world, Peter always says that he calls me the world police, because I can't let any injustice just squeak by. Like I just can't, no matter how uncomfortable. So what a wonderful world this would be if we all spoke up for those that don't have a voice, don't have the courage to speak up. So yeah, I'm gonna say, hey, if you're watching this, you start speaking up for those that can't speak for themselves.
Can you know, often times we'll get a bit of feedback around, well, how do I do that? Like what's an example of an opportunity to speak up for someone that would be not aggressive, but assertive?
Well, I actually, it's funny we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, because I watched a webinar yesterday. I never watch webinars. It was from the Institute for Health and Human Potential. It was absolutely fabulous. And there was three people there, and one woman told a story whereby she was, and I won't get this verbatim, I'll try my best, but she told a story. She was enrolled in the MBA program, and they had a guest speaker come on, and it was a man talking about how leadership is exclusively a man's sport. And apparently it wasn't that long ago. And he had all kinds of data like brain scans, sports analogies. And this woman was sitting in this auditorium looking at all the other women, which were, I think, the minority in the room, saying, why is nobody saying anything? This is ridiculous. So finally she's putting up her hand, and she's like, I don't agree with this. And he was continuing to make disparaging remarks like, oh, your husband must think you talk too much. And she's looking around again and going, why is nobody speaking up? So she puts up her hand again and completely disrupts the entire lecture. That's an example of being assertive, speaking for a cause, not letting him get away with it.
Cool. That is a major courage move.
Right?
Right on.
And inside, do you think she was not nervous about doing that? Of course.
Well, there was some sweating and some heart beating for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So these wonderful presenters on that webinar yesterday provided various examples. It was really beautiful.
Wow. And I good for her. I'm so curious what came of it. Did she talk about it or no?
She just said that he was never invited back.
I think that's part of it too, is accept it, not attachment to outcome, and, being okay with where it might want to go. And it may mean we're not invited back, but did you live in alignment with your values?
Yes.
Right. Like I'm big on integrity. And so if I see something if I see something that is unethical, that I think is unethical or is hurting someone, I will speak up.
Yeah,
and
me too.
There's probably been moments where it's made people very uncomfortable. But if I speak up with respect and with positive intention,
that's it.
Especially when someone, doesn't have a voice or doesn't feel they have the right to have a voice or is in an unsafe environment too. One of the things you and I have talked about too in conflict is that for it to be healthy, it starts with you.
Yeah.
What do we mean by that?
It's about intention. If I'm going into a conflictual, like we defined it right at the beginning, if there is incompatible goals, whatever it is, if my intention is to get you, we're going to go into unhealthy conflict. If my intention is kindness, I want to repair this, whatever this is, I want to come to resolution, sets the tone completely differently. What do you think?
Yeah, I think one of the things that makes it safe is stated in intentions. I want us to be okay. I care about this relationship. I don't know where this will go, but what I know is I want it to be okay. What do you need from the conversation? So that intentions piece is really positive. I also think, to the expression, we're all doing the best that we can. And trusting that in another person. We're each flawed, very human beings. But the starts with you thing is, rather than the persecution, hold on, what do I own in this? What's my responsibility in this? And something that there's a couple of things coming to mind that I've found really, really helpful. I can think of actually something that that I'm rumbling with right now with, a random text that someone who I really care about has sent me. And I'm like a little taken aback by it. And I'm like, oh, better check my assumptions. better remember the intentions are positive. I don't like what was said in a text, but at the same time, remember that the root of this relationship is in trust. And how can this person know that it was off-putting if I don't have the conversation? But instead of blaming this other person, making shit up, holding a story that I don't even share, I'm viewing it as an opportunity to go, okay, wait a second. What do I own? There's a reaction I'm having to this. What assumptions am I making? And this person and I love this person to bits. We're going to have a quick convo, not a big deal. But I actually remembered my little rumble stools. I don't know what those are. But rumble tools and rumble starters, again, from Dare to Lead, which are super helpful. And at the top of the rumble tools, and rumble is stepping into the arena without your armor.
Yeah. With
vulnerability and courage and trust. And, the first thing I want to say is like, the story I'm making up is, so it starts with me.
Yeah.
The story I'm making up is, and I also want to know, like, what's my part? I'm going to say it to the person, like, what's my part in the reaction? And I'm kind of exploring that.
And I think that's super great example. And I think enveloping it, I think what needs to be discussed is conflict should never be entered into via text or email.
Well, and I'm a big fan of, and this wasn't even conflict. This is someone who was just, openly sharing something that was on their minds.
Gotcha.
Like,
yeah.
Whoa. I'm not a big fan of, I don't talk about people or around people.
Right.
That erodes trust.
Oh,
it can lead to conflict alone.
100%.
So when we see that come through, or when we see, emotionally laden texts or emails, if you're feeling emotion, again, starts with you. I think there's opportunity to be like, oh, I'm feeling emotion. I need to have a conversation once I'm grounded.
Right.
I don't think we should be writing.
Yeah.
I don't. No. It's really hard sometimes working with clients who are working through a tough thing, and they know that they're like, well, I think I'm just going to write them a letter over email. And as a coach, I can't tell you what I think you should do.
Right.
So we really have to explore, how would you like to receive something like that? There's deep emotion here. How do you put that on the table so that it doesn't feel personal and it's more around the problem at hand and putting it between you?
I'm going to neg on my statement here, because I'm thinking about one particular time where I did write an email and entered into conflict that way. And it was a way for that individual or an attempt for healthy conflict, but it was an attempt and an acknowledgement of that person's receiving style. Strong introvert, right? I need to think about it for a while. So actually I renege on that statement. I think you can get away with that.
Yeah.
Do you think we should start wrapping up, Eva? Top tips?
Yeah, I think I always, one of the things we love about these conversations is they can go anywhere. And it's always a neat exploration. And it also makes us, revisit some stuff that, maybe we haven't looked at for a month or two in the conflict space. There's one resource that I would really love to put on the table if you're open to it. And we're both familiar with it. And it's the 4 Horsemen from the Gottman Institute. And I think it's not like a one-stop shop, but it's pretty close to it for just, we talk about putting the funk back into being human, and for any human, I believe anywhere, but challenge me, anybody listening, challenge me on that. It's a really neat model from the Gottman Institute. You can Google it. The 4, it's similar to the drama triangle. If you identify with any of these elements in yourself or in another person, there are antidotes. And, so if you experience or you give off criticism, contempt, defensiveness, or stonewalling.
My fave, stonewalling.
Oh yeah, do you do stonewalling?
I don't. I've been the receiver of that.
Oh yeah,
a lot.
Hard.
Yeah. So what is stonewalling? Yeah.
I'm not talking to you. I'm armoring up and I'm going to withdraw.
Distance, separation, physical movement. Oh, yeah.
Totally shutting down. And we all have our histories that may cause us to respond to conflict in that way. But again, starts with self. If we understand more around how we show up using different models that we've shared or other resources that you'll have access to, ask ourselves, which one do I have a tendency to do? What are the behaviors and actions that I can sometimes tend to do? And explore what the antidotes might be. So the antidotes to these, instead of criticism, this one talks about a gentle startup. Look it up to learn more. I want to be conscious of time. Contempt, offer appreciation. Create a culture of appreciation with one another. Instead of defensiveness, own it, take responsibility, go figure. Instead of stonewalling, it talks about, take a break, such as the example that you gave in performance reviews. If you're uncomfortable, you're an employee, you're not okay with what happened, you're not okay with what you're hearing, you reserve the right to take a time out. It's called psychological or physiological self-soothing, to just get out of reptile brain and get to a safe place so you can re-enter the conversation. So lots of stuff to start with self versus persecuting and blaming it and judging and assuming. What's our roles in it? What ideas do you have that you want to leave people with today?
All things that we talked about. So I would say if you're a leader in an organization, I want you to mine for that conflict. I want you to pull out the elephant in the room. I want you to go there. I want you to provide real-time permission when you are going there. Like I said, with the CEO and CIO example, you're doing it, good work, show it real time. I kind of like the disagree and commit model that we talked about with Jeff Bezos. And finally, I'll leave you with this. Remember, how you finish a conversation, a meeting, perhaps one that is in conflict, remember they're going to go home. And how that gets finished is going to have an impact on their day, on their spouse and others. So your words and how you choose those words in conflict and healthy conflict really matter. So remember, we're not just in conflict or healthy conflict with one individual, we're in conflict with everybody that they touch. Your top tips?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think something that sort of wraps up some of what we've been talking about is, I think, instead of sitting in judgment and assumption and persecution, I think that we have opportunity to lead. We talk a lot about, we're seeing so much out there on empathy and curiosity. I'm not going to shy away from continuing to say those words, even if they're cliche, even if they're overused. I really don't care. I think we all play a role to put the funk back into being human and create a healthier humanity. We need more empathy. What's it like to be in the other person's shoes? We need more curiosity over judgment. What's going on here? What do you need? I think we need more, exploration of positive possibility. What are we learning from this, and what could we do differently in the future if we're faced with something similar like this? And pursuit of positive action. And, maybe down the road, we're able to revisit, like, how'd that go? That one went better. Like we had a team disagreement, or in the family, or in a couple, or as friends, or as colleagues. Like, there's something that's working differently. Let's talk about it. So then we're in this ongoing cycle of learning. It goes to learning mindset, growth mindset, versus being stuck. And hurting one another. I would also add, and I think I've said this before in other episodes, but I would highlight, I think, we've talked about disagreements and conflict and whatnot. There's also really serious conflict that is extremely damaging to the extent of being abusive and unsafe. And so I think if anybody has that on their minds and has some processing and healing work to do, there is support that exists. It's sometimes hard to reach out. counselors, therapists, psychologists. Can't thank them enough in my own path and in the path of those I love. If anybody needs referrals, I can certainly refer them. I'm sure you can too, Carolyn, depending on your jurisdiction. And I also think, if you're feeling stuck, and this isn't, at all meant to be self-promo necessarily for Carolyn or for I, but the reality is whatever, coach or facilitator you choose to work with, there are resources there. We've talked about some models and some resources in these things. We both work with teams in the space, and we literally watch progress happen. We watch learning, progress, momentum, sustainability, that innovation and that great strategy you're after. The whole, what is it? Culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yeah.
Part of healthy culture is having healthy disagreement, healthy tension, creative tension that's psychologically safe. So call on resources to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that, please, as we started, we might have been doing this for 10 hours. I don't know. It could be 5 minutes.
It's the 14th hour and we're both 92.
Please do subscribe. And when I say subscribe, we mean on our YouTube channel. We also have these mugs. How do we want to give away the mugs this time?
Well, I think, we put a call out at the beginning for share a topic of interest that you want us to cover off. Share if you want to be part of the conversation and join us in future, and why. Share it in comments on the YouTube channel. Share it on episode 6 in the thread there. And then we'll do what we usually do, which is a random draw for the first 10 who post. Yep. Yeah. We
also have a playlist on Spotify. Check that out if you like disco and funk. You can find me at talktalk.ca. You can find Eva at livewithfervor.com. So until next time, let's say it together, my friend.
Stay pithy. Keep musing.
Thanks, Eva.
Thank you.